Today we're talking about one of the most important and most overlooked spiritual practices there is, grounding. And no, I'm not talking about what your parents did after you stayed out all night at the ice rink. We're talking about the kind of grounding that can keep you balanced when life gets chaotic, help you navigate intense spiritual experiences, and maybe even make your intuition clearer instead of cloudier. Why do so many experienced spiritual practitioners insist that grounding is not optional? Can you really be highly intuitive and completely ungrounded? And as always, we're asking the question, are you psychic too? Hey, star people, welcome back to Are You Psychic Too? The podcast where we explore intuition, spirituality, synchronicity, and all the strange and wonderful experiences that make us ask, what's really going on here? Today we're talking about grounding. My name is Cliff, but I could not do this alone. Jenni, Kelsey, how are you guys doing today?
Awesome. I'm Jenni, psychoanalyst, soul guide, dream interpreter.
Doing great. I'm Kelsey. I'm a dream interpreter, energy healer, and spiritual mentor.
All right. Well, let's start at the beginning. We're talking about grounding. So what is grounding? If you've spent any time in spiritual circles, as I know both of you have, you've probably heard someone say, you need to get grounded. But what does that actually mean? It's a term that's used constantly in spiritual communities, but not everyone means the same thing when they say it. So let's start there. When we talk about grounding, what are we actually talking about, you guys? What is grounding?
Well, I kind of think of grounding as an electricity cord that's plugged in. So I think they actually use that term. Is that a live wire or is it a grounded wire? Grounding to me means becoming more stable and returning to your center. If you're a live wire, and I know you guys have seen live wires, they just kind of, spin and they're out of control. And there's nothing useful about it in that stage. So when it's grounded, it's usable, and we're all made of energy. So that's kind of how I see grounding. It's I ground to earth, but it's necessary in the spiritual work.
How about you, Kelsey? What do you think about grounding?
Yeah, when I think about grounding, I think about a really strong intention. It's just an intention, and it's started in my root chakra. And I think about the root chakra as an exit for energy, stagnant energy, flowing energy, energy that I don't want to have. And it's a strong intention to release all of that, releasing my negative thoughts, any low vibrations. And then it's kind of like calming the nervous system. That's what I feel. So like when I'm really well grounded, I feel very strong, stable, and I have a solid foundation beneath my feet. Most times I don't really walk around like that.
I would agree. I would say that grounding is the practice of being present, centered, and connected to yourself and the world around you. And basically, it just helps you stay balanced and navigate life, spiritual experiences, just life in general. So why do you guys think grounding is so important?
Because the energy that we are and that we receive as healers or people in this particular spiritual field needs to be embodied in order for it to be useful. So grounding takes the energy that we have and the knowledge, whether it's clairvoyance or mediumship or energy healings, and it allows that energy to be useful to self and others when it's embodied.
That makes sense.
Yeah. As you were asking that question, the first thing I thought about was myself before even knowing what grounding was. And at that time, I was very like spacey and avoidant. So I feel like grounding gives us the kind of self-empowerment to address our issues and concerns and have to face reality with a more solid foundation beneath our feet. I think grounding's important so that we can connect to the world and our reality.
Yeah.
Or dance between the realities.
Yeah.
Well, okay. How do you mean that?
Well, when you work with spirit and you're connecting to entities that no one else can see and they're not embodied, right? That's a particular skill.
Sure,
so that you have to remain embodied. Yeah.
Yeah. It balances you and grounds you, but it also allows you to navigate those spiritual
and not get lost in that realm. Yeah.
Well, Jenni mentioned earlier about how there's energy flowing, and I think that's a big one. It's that there was like that anxiety that you feel. Like I think of that as a stuck energy within your body that needs to escape. I don't know if that's right.
Yeah, no,
but that's what I think.
I totally agree. I think
it needs an outlet.
Yeah, so grounding helps remove that or helps release it. That's how I think of it.
I think any electrical engineer would agree with what we're talking about from a logical standpoint. They might not see the spiritual side of it, but what we're talking about is kind of the same thing in a way. Now, do either of you guys see grounding as a form of spiritual protection?
Absolutely. I look at grounding as the first form of protection when it comes to my spirituality and my spiritual practice. I see it as if I'm going to pick up any energies, any entities, anything that I don't want attached to me, grounding is where I'm going to release it. So I always look at my grounding as a very strong form of protection. And that's the first thing that I recommend anybody working on is the grounding. And, you know, what does that mean for you? So for some people, I think they feel very calm. They feel neutral. They feel strong. I know for me, it's like if somebody were to come to try to push me, they wouldn't be able to move me. And to me, that is my grounding feeling. And so if you can get really strong in whatever that grounding looks like for you, like that's going to help keep you protected as you move in the spiritual field. What do you guys think?
I completely agree. I think that it's different for every person. I mean, I know people who say that they feel like they're in a fog when they're properly grounded. Personally, I feel heavy, like my lower half of my body kind of sets into the ground, and I feel like kind of like you were saying, like, go ahead, try and knock me over, you know? So I think it's different for everybody, but there's always a tell. Jenni, what's your tell?
When I'm connected and grounded, or just I think
when you're grounded. When you're grounded.
Okay. I think it has to do with focus. And so, you know, Kelsey mentioned intention, and I see that as a before. Focus is the active area of whatever is going to put you at ease right then, or put you in the space that you want to be. But there's a lot of people that are not comfortable in their body because of body trauma. So those people tend to not be as grounded because it hurts to be embodied.
So how do you feel when you're grounded, though?
I feel connected, at peace. My heart rate is normal. I'm listening to my own truth and not scattered. I think I don't know a word for that, but not scattered.
Yeah, not scattered, unscattered. Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about signs that you may not be grounded. One of the challenges with grounding is that many people don't realize when they've lost it. In fact, it can be difficult to recognize until you look back and notice something feels out of balance or just weird. Some common signs people associate with being ungrounded include feeling scattered, like you said, Jenni, being overwhelmed, being emotionally reactive, the inability to focus, feeling disconnected from your body, maybe, and I think we all know people like this, constantly chasing the next spiritual experience, or just simply finding it harder to manage your everyday life. Now, like I said, not everyone experiences being ungrounded in the same way, just like they don't experience being grounded in the same way. What it looks and feels like can vary very differently from person to person. So, have you guys ever realized after the fact that you weren't grounded?
Many times. And for me, it was always after a significant trauma. Kind of in hindsight, I have to add.
Yeah.
I would say, wow, living at my ranch in New Mexico, there was a lot of spiritual activity because it was a portal, but I didn't know that when I moved there. So I had had a trauma, moved there, and then all this activity was going on where I wasn't able to discern what was my own thoughts versus messages from others or other activity. And so I didn't take the time to go back to my own truth or my own center and just be present because there was just too much activity spiritually going around. So I look back and say, wow, I was scattered.
When did you, I mean, that was a pretty chaotic time.
Crazy.
When did you look back and realize, oh my gosh, all these things, I was not
Yesterday?
grounded for all that.
No, I would say along the healing journey. And, that takes a while. And it's good for me to recognize, just because of the psychology work that I do, what that means, because I can see it and it's relatable when I see it in others. And so taking breaths and being present and not distracted is how I can recognize myself. If I am distracted and doing many things at once and a little scatterbrained or talking about one thing and then changing the subject, then I know. And you've recognized that in me, Cliff. You've been like, okay.
Absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
do you guys think that there is a difference between excitement and being ungrounded?
I think so. I think when I think of myself being excited, that's just me being in complete joy. There's no anchor to it, Like I can get into my daydreaming phases of like manifesting, like this is what I want, and I get so excited, but it's not being really anchored to anything. It's just me acting out of joy and excitement. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I completely can relate to that too. It's like you get all caught up in something and your mind's going a million miles an hour and your heart's racing and all these ideas. And then you ground yourself and you're like, oh, okay, hold on, wait a second, and it's kind of like reality hits.
Yeah. I do think it's possible to ground that though. Like if you're excited about something, to bring it into your reality, which is I think what we forget to do often, Like don't just manifest something out of like just because you're excited. Like bring it in. Feel it in your body. Anchor it into. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think you can manifest things without being grounded. It's part of the manifestation process, I think.
But being grounded means facing reality. And reality is not always kind.
Yes, we know that. Do you guys think that someone could be grounded in one area of life and ungrounded in another area of life?
I'm not sure what you mean, but I know that if we are asking grounded to what? Like if people say, oh, that person needs to get grounded, then you're kind of like, okay, grounded to what? Because people can be grounded in grief. They can be grounded in trauma. They can be grounded in materialism. It's whatever their focus or center is, right? So facing reality involves all kinds of different emotions or feelings. So
wait. Then you're saying then somebody could be grounded in like their business, but not grounded in their personal life. So then you have to ground yourself in a bunch of different ways.
Well, it's what your focus is.
What if you just what if you meditate and you just ground yourself completely? Then aren't you grounded in everything?
If the person knows how to do that, then that is entirely helpful. But if they don't, because they don't know about these things, then they might go for a run. And that might be the grounding agent for them. that they don't call it that.
Sure. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree that there are lots of people who, they'll be listening to this going, grounding. What the heck are they talking about? But then they'll go for a run and it'll be the same effect. And I think we've talked about this before, where it's like the method that you use to get to where you're going, it can be a lot of different ways. But as long as you get to that point where you're connected, calm, you have discernment, I mean, isn't that grounding?
I think so. I mean, for me, the most grounded I feel is when I ground to my truth. My truth, yeah. when it's just my truth. And
what do you mean when you say you ground to your truth?
I ignore limited beliefs, patterns, other people's judgments, fear of opinions about me, and I just stick to my own truth. That is where I feel grounded.
Okay. Well, have you guys ever met someone who was incredibly spiritual but clearly not grounded?
Yeah. I'm so sorry if you can hear the vacuum going off right now.
That's okay. It's part of the charm of the podcast. By the way, for those of you who want to know, that's the vacuum in the background. So
yeah, sorry about that.
Stop sending us letters about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is all perception based of whoever you're dealing with. And there's been so many times where I've dealt with or had clients who've have claimed that they've been working on their spirituality for like more than 20 years and they don't know what grounding is, which I think is so crazy. Because yeah, oh my God.
They've been working on spirituality for 20 years and they don't know what grounding is.
Yes, I had this one specific client and he came to me for an energetic clearing, and he has told me that he was studying shamanism, doing all these practices. And when I asked him, like I said, how's your grounding? He didn't know. He was like, well, I go to the beach once in a while and I don't really have access to nature. So I don't really ground. And
he took it literally.
Yeah, he took it really literally. And so I explained to him what grounding really meant to me and how it can help calm your nervous system and all that stuff. Because when I looked at his root chakra, I was like, this man is not grounded, And so I think it's hard for me to see like someone who's incredibly spiritual and not be grounded, but I think it's all perception. And I think, I'm really new to the spiritual space. So I've only been doing this for 3 years now. And when someone comes to me and they're like, well, I've been doing this for 20, 30 years, I think you already have all this knowledge,
This goes to show you that they obviously don't sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, they have knowledge maybe, but
they do.
Spirituality and you two know as channels has nothing to do with the head. It doesn't have anything to do with knowledge. You can learn everything about shamanism, but I will tell you one thing. If he has practiced shamanism, they know what grounding is.
Yeah.
That's their energy field.
Exactly.
That's what they work with.
I can't think of any spiritual field that wouldn't know what grounding is.
All of the spiritual spaces, shamanism knows earth energy the most.
That's what I thought too. I was like, well, how? So anyway, I don't know. Maybe it was a different type, or maybe it was a runoff. I have no idea what he's went through,
or maybe it was ego block. I'm just saying.
Maybe, yeah.
But I have been around personally someone that was highly intuitive and would just utter out prophecy stuff, and it would come too, right? But so not grounded, and actually was so clumsy and careless with matter, anything with matter, which is the 3D world, right? That it was almost like an allergy. But it was because of trauma in her childhood, right? Every time she was embodied, it got hurt. So, hey, here we go. I'm out of here. I'll stay up here in this realm. But the problem was that you couldn't understand her. You couldn't learn from her because she couldn't use a paper and pencil and write things down. I mean, we have to connect the two energy fields. So, yeah, it looks very discombobulated.
Yeah, I think one easy way, Kelsey, to figure out if that guy was really spiritual is when he handed you his business card. If it said his name and shaman on it, then you could probably tell it's not very spiritual.
Well, if he said, I am very spiritual,
Yeah,
I have been doing this 20 years, then you're kind of like, thou dost protest too much.
Yeah.
Kind of one of those things. I don't think it's, I don't think highly spiritual people actually have to tell you.
Yes.
No, I don't think so. Yeah. Right. Which reminds me of another guy that once told me that he feels like he's way more advanced than me in his spirituality because he's been doing this so much longer.
Highly spiritual people don't have a hierarchy.
Yeah,
no,
and it doesn't matter how many years. Like you said, you've only been doing it for a short time. I don't think the number of years, it's not the same thing as like, being in business or something where it's like, oh, I've been doing accounting for 30 years. Mm-hmm. Spirituality is a different thing. I mean, you're a very powerful spiritual person, Kelsey, and I don't think that the number of years takes away from it. Like, oh, this guy's been doing it 20 years, so he's got to be better. I don't think it works that way with this kind of stuff.
Thanks, guys. No, I don't. I agree too. I mean, when they've said things, people have said things to me because I also look younger, and so
thank you.
I think I know.
Yeah, don't rub it in.
I mean, okay, didn't mean it like that, but sometimes I feel like I show up to a client and they're like, I'm supposed to get something out of this girl. Like she looks just 18.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, anyway, it doesn't really hurt my feelings, but I do think that's a very telling sign of where they are at in their spirituality, because I think highly advanced spiritual people would never say things like that.
Exactly.
Exactly. Grounded people would never say anything like that.
What Jenni said is, what was your thing? You said, I'm a very spiritual person or something like that.
Oh, I have been spiritual for 20 years.
Yeah.
Listen, folks, we're all spiritual entities having a human experience.
Hard pass on that, lady. Okay. Well, let's talk for a second about why grounding matters. So many spiritual traditions emphasize grounding because it creates a strong foundation for everything else, just like what we've been talking about. Intuition tends to be clear when we're calm and centered. Decision-making improves. Relationships become healthier, and we become less reactive and more responsive. Grounding also helps us maintain discernment, as we've been talking about. When we're grounded, we're less likely to be swept away by fear or wishful thinking or every new spiritual idea that comes along. It allows us to explore spirituality while keeping both feet firmly planted in reality. In many ways, grounding isn't what happens before awakening. It's what helps us navigate awakening successfully. Grounding encourages us to slow down, process what we're experiencing, and integrate those lessons into everyday life. Growth doesn't come from constantly reaching for the next experience. Often it comes from fully digesting the experiences we've already had. If your spiritual practice causes you to avoid conflict, money, issues, grief, health, boundaries, or relationships, is it actually grounding you?
Well, it's grounding you to the avoidance, to the fear.
Yeah.
Can you be grounded to an avoidance?
I think you can be grounded to fear. There's lots of people. I mean, think about when COVID happened.
Yeah.
That's all they thought about was the fear of getting sick and dying. And it eliminates anything else from coming in.
But are you actually grounding yourself to the fear, or are you just living in fear and living ungrounded? Because if you were more grounded, maybe you would have less of that fear.
I was just going to say, is it your mind taking over? Which then doesn't ground, like you're not grounded if it's your mind that's running your whole nervous system, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you're highly anxious about getting sick, then you are, I don't know, I think you could be maybe grounded in fear. You can be grounded in your limited beliefs.
There we go.
You are attached to it. So grounding is the opposite. Grounding isn't just about physicality.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
No.
And it's not the opposite of spirituality.
No. It's a little of column A, a little of column B, I think, and column C.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I get it. So it's kind of like you mentioned earlier about grounding in different aspects, right? So like being really good in your relationship, maybe you're grounded in your
Mm-hmm.
relationship, but you're not grounded in career
Right.
or financial security,
Right.
like that kinds of stuff is kind of it could be the same thing. It could be grounded in different aspects.
Right.
Interesting. I agree. I think so too.
It's because the lack of grounding usually becomes because of it, comes on because of our experiences, our lived experiences in this body. So the spirit or the soul inhabits this body. And, speaking for myself, it's not really fun to deal with some of the things that you have to deal with along the way, like legal stuff. But it has to be done. But I don't like it. I
think
would
that
way rather be
constitutes an
channeling.
inside joke. I'm not sure, but I think that constitutes an inside joke there.
Whatever. It has to do with the aforementioned ranch blowing up. But
Yeah.
it's something I have to deal with because it needs to happen out of principle. So I don't like that. I do kind of avoid it. It's like homework. But if I ground first
Yeah.
and have a goal,
I was just going to say, before you start
I have
dealing
to.
with that issue, you sit down and ground yourself thoroughly, and then it's like, okay, I can deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just say, okay, I'm going to do this for 4 hours. And then when I'm finished, I feel better, but that's why I keep going back to that whole focus thing or truth. Because when I'm grounded in my truth, the reason that I'm in that whole legal thing is because of truth and wanting to fight those who are thieves.
Well, I think it's grounding's like it's a practice then. And
Yes.
if you practice staying in that fear, you're grounded in that fear. To me, I don't think that's what my grounding would look like. I don't want it to look like that. And so it's a steady practice. And so it doesn't always start off as like that strong feeling of calm and strength and stability. It's a gradual incline, which gets stronger and stronger the more we practice. I remember the first time trying to ground, I was like, ugh, it was so difficult just because it was too foreign. I never practiced it, and it was a very like split, like, okay, I can hold it for like maybe 2 seconds and then I'm done going back into it, into my avoidance. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, let's talk about some practical ways to ground yourself, because we haven't really touched on that yet. So it doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, I think most grounding techniques are surprisingly ordinary. Walking in nature, physical exercise, meditation, breath work, having a healthy routine, eating good food, getting good sleep, having good friends. That can all help us get back to center. So what grounding practices work best for you guys?
I like all of those things that you just mentioned. Nature, exercise, meditation. I'm not a big breathwork person, but healthy routines, all of it. Mm-hmm. Good sleep. That's like all like what I can do in my daily life without having to sit down and sit with an intention. And when I sit with the intention, to me, that's like the completion. It's like the full circle for me. I don't know.
The full connection.
Yeah.
Of being plugged into all of your chakras. I think that for me, I have a practice where I put a hand on my heart and a hand on my center, right belly, and say, okay, are you safe? Am I safe? Am I breathing? Am I okay? And once you realize I'm okay right now and very present, the nervous system will start to regulate. Because the body has memory too. And so I have to practice that because of my own traumas. And it's easy for me to recognize in other people because of my own experiences and not really having to do with what I've learned in books, actually. It's haven't you been around someone where if they are scattered and distracted and super ADHD, symptom like, you kind of match them, or is that just me? where I just kind of go, oh, okay, let's do this. Oh, all right. And then I have to go, wait a second. That's not my reality. That's theirs. I don't have to match that because then it will continue.
Yeah. No, I agree. That happens.
I've got to embody my own experiences, admit them, face them, and then feel my feelings is a huge part for me. Feel my feelings, live in my own reality center, and make sure that I'm not acting from any kind of fear or pattern or limited belief system.
One thing that's always worked really well for me is earthing. And I know we talked a little bit about it before, but I don't know if you know Clint Olber. He wrote a whole book about it, and it really changed the way I look at it in a big way. I always liked walking on that beach and didn't know exactly what the mechanics of it were. Clint's book kind of explained it to me on a very mechanical level, not a spiritual one. But I don't know whether grounding is happening electrically or physiologically or spiritually, or more likely a combination of all three. All I know is that I felt better after doing it. So it's always worked for me.
I guess my simple practice for grounding is I just did it before jumping on here to start recording.
Mm-hmm.
Of course,
and
we all do.
Everything that's bothering me. I like the kids, the chaos, the planning, the vacationing, all of the stuff that's happening right now. I had to just silence my mind and release it. And that's the intention practice that I work on. Releasing what's bothering me, what's concerning me, what's getting in the way from me to listening to my own intuition.
It's kind of a superpower in a way, because it really can change your outlook on anything. And just, you can go into a situation harried and fed up and whatever, and you ground yourself, and then suddenly, okay, I can deal with all these legal papers. I'll just sign them,
Right. It's just a hoop you have to jump through.
Exactly.
I, oddly enough, ground in water because that element is my home, I feel like. And so any kind of bath or water, jumping in the water, that is grounding. And you wouldn't think that, but it is an element of earth as well.
Oh,
and
yeah,
that centers me. Yeah.
Yeah, I've known other people who say the same thing. Like water is going for a swim is like their way of grounding themselves.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, so let's talk a little bit about what keeps us coming back to grounding. So many of us discover grounding after we've already had powerful spiritual experiences. And then over time, we learn that grounding isn't something we do once. It's an ongoing practice, a daily practice. We've talked about that already. And as life changes, our spiritual practices may change too. So what keeps us grounded today may be very different from what worked 10 years ago. The real value of grounding isn't that it prevents us from growing, it's that it gives us a stable foundation from which to grow. The deeper our roots, the more capable we are of handling whatever life or our spiritual journey brings our way. So have your grounding practices changed over the years?
Yeah. I would say like before knowing any of this, before being able to channel and connect, I was told to ground using a certain method. And since then it's changed. I've added to it. I've tried different ways of doing it. And I think the outcome is the most important thing to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. Has it changed the outcome that you reach?
No, the outcome is always the same. But the grounding method has changed. Like maybe it did work using one method, like thinking of a sword and cutting all the cords around me, that worked for a while in the beginning. And then eventually I changed it and added to it, by sending a light down into the ground and connecting to the earth. And then I changed that. So I think it's just kind of evolved because I don't know what it is. Like maybe it just didn't work, or it worked during that time and then it didn't work after a little while.
Yeah. I mean,
has that happened for you guys?
Yeah. The only constant is change in life. So
And growth. It's about growth.
How about you, Jen? Have you had different ways of grounding over the years?
Yes, absolutely. Before I knew the term grounding or centering or back to focus, I would say that I also would do stretching or swimming. And so the body seems to be the key, embodying the energy. I think that grounding helps us determine what our experiences mean. And when we start connecting those things, then we can say, oh, right, this helped regulate me last time, or this made me feel better, or I felt more energized after my walk, and maybe not to know all the science about it, but to know what gets you back to your own center.
Exactly. It's the science or the spirituality doesn't matter. It's how you feel at the end of it. So what do you guys feel about relationships? How do they play a role in grounding?
It depends on the focus. If you're a person that is inclined to define yourself within a relationship, then you're going to be dependent on the relationships to help ground you. And that is something that requires healing and growth. But if
that sounds like you're not grounded then, if you're depending on somebody else to ground you.
Right, but you don't know that because that's what's grounded you before. Right? That's what makes you feel stable. So gotcha. That's what I wanted to say. Stability and grounding isn't the same thing. You can be stable in a lot of different areas and in this earth plane, but not grounded to your own essence, your own truth.
But in general, I mean, if you're in a healthy, loving relationship, I would suspect that would aid in your overall grounding in general.
I guess. I think it's a pretty personal practice. If we're talking about the practice of grounding, we can't feel what another person's feeling.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it's your partner, you can kind of, you kind of understand well, maybe not. I don't know.
I
think like when I'm thinking about grounding, I'm disconnecting from everybody. Like I don't want anybody in my energy and my space, including my relationships.
Interesting.
I just think it's when I think I was dependent on my relationship, I was very ungrounded, and they could tell me anything and I would believe it. They'd be like, you have anger problems, you have this problem, you have that problem, and be like, oh my God, okay, let me work on it. I wasn't connecting to myself the whole time, and I believed it. And
that's what I was talking about. Yeah.
There are things that I should be working on, so like I don't look at it like it was a bad thing. There were things that I needed to work on, obviously. And I did do that through that relationship. But now our relationship's very different because we do try to keep it separate. Like we keep doing our work individually. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know. This is hard. This is complex. And then together it's another practice.
Well, if we talk about sex, then we
weren't talking about sex. But keep going.
Get out the rooster.
No. Well, before we go down that rooster hole, let's just let's just end on the note of, if listeners could take away one lesson from today's episode about grounding, what would you guys want it to be?
I would say start practicing. Like practice now. And I can kind of already hear the objections of like, well, I don't have the time and it's too busy and you don't know my schedule. And how dare you tell me to take more time? But it's truly is a practice and it's not easy. And if you really think about it, that's just the avoidance of the practice of getting into your body or releasing all of these things and understanding it. But it is all for your own benefit.
And I think that once you feel the benefit of it, then there's kind of no turning back. It's like once you realize, oh wow, when I'm grounded, I'm I have way more discernment. I make way better decisions. All these other good things that come along with grounding would make you more inclined to want to learn how to do it and maybe practice it on a regular basis.
Yeah. And if it's just the beginning, it's gonna help you understand yourself a lot more clear. You're gonna know it's gonna be an opportunity to grow and learn about yourself. And so I think that's how it all started for me. I'm like, grounding, I could probably do it for 2 minutes a day and that was it. And now I can sit in it for like 20 minutes and spend a long time grounding and releasing and understanding. And it has helped me tremendously grow in my spirituality, in my discernment, in my gifts, connecting with other people, not taking things so personally when they tell me that they're so much more advanced than I am.
How about you, Jen? What do you say?
I would say listen to the body. The body doesn't lie.
Yeah.
And it will give you cues. It's the vehicle for our soul. And if our soul is just energy, then really what we're grounding is into the body, into the vehicle. Mm-hmm. And so if we listen to it and do not ignore it, a lot of spiritual people disregard body as, oh, well, it's just this meat suit. But the word incarnation is incarnate, in meat. So it literally means this is your outfit you're wearing for this life. And take care of it, listen to it, ground to it, and whatever, the earth, and allow it to move you so that you can have meaningful, useful experiences.
Before we wrap up, it's worth mentioning that the word grounded gets used in a lot of different ways. People might say someone is grounded in their career, their beliefs, or even their fears or anger. In those cases, they simply mean that's what the person is anchored in. But throughout this episode, we've been using grounded in the spiritual sense, being present, embodied, balanced, and connected to yourself. It's not about what you're anchored to. It's about the quality of your awareness, no matter what life brings your way. Grounding may not be the flashiest spiritual topic, but it might be one of the most important. It's what helps us bring spiritual experiences into everyday life in a healthy, balanced way. Whether you're just beginning your journey or you've been exploring these ideas for years, grounding reminds us that growth doesn't happen somewhere else. It happens right here, in the lives we're living every day. Stay curious, stay grounded, and remember the goal isn't to escape your life, it's to be fully present for it. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. My name is Cliff.
I'm Kelsey.
I'm Jenny, and your body's beautiful.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Oh, you're still here. The podcast is over now. Okay. Since you made it this far, I guess we should let you in on one of the show's little mysteries. Every now and then, you might hear a rooster crow somewhere in the episode. No, it isn't a secret spiritual symbol. No, it doesn't mean someone has reached enlightenment. And no, there's no hidden code in there. Originally, we used the rooster to bleep out a word that we didn't want to leave in the recording. We chose a rooster because one of our co-hosts lives on Kauai, where the wild chickens and roosters pretty much run the place. It made us all laugh, so we kept using it. That's it. That's the whole story. Or maybe that's just what we want you to believe.